The Bordeaux was still being poured when my world collapsed. I watched the deep red liquid curve into crystal, the sommelier's practiced wrist turning with precision. When our CEO rose from his seat, the gentle clink of his knife against glass silenced the room. 40 faces turned toward him, clients, colleagues, and a handful of interns wide-eyed at their first corporate dinner. Before we continue with our wonderful evening, I have an unfortunate announcement to make. His eyes found mine across the table. In that moment, I knew. Amanda Byrne will no longer be continuing her journey with Strattonix Dynamics, effective immediately. The sommelier froze mid-pour, wine suspended in that fragile moment between bottle and glass. I sat motionless, my appetizer half-eaten before me. Her resistance to innovation has become an anchor dragging down our entire logistics division. At Strattonix, we move forward or we step aside. The room didn't gasp, no one protested. Instead, a glacial silence spread across the white tablecloths and polished silverware. My colleagues studied their plates with sudden, profound interest. A client coughed quietly. I hadn't been fired in a conference room. I'd been publicly executed, with goat cheese crostini and crystal stemware as witnesses. I placed my napkin beside my plate, gathered my purse, and stood. 40 pairs of eyes followed me, then darted away when I looked back. Not one person spoke. Not one. As I walked toward the exit, a hand lightly touched my elbow. A man I didn't recognize slipped a business card into my palm. "Call me tomorrow," he whispered. 8 a.m. I nodded mechanically, too numb to speak, and continued walking. The valet brought my car with pitying eyes. I drove home in silence, the business card burning a hole in my pocket. When I finally looked at it under the harsh light of my kitchen, the embossed lettering read, Grant Hallberg, founder, Hallberg and Cross Investment Group. By morning, I was sitting in a billionaire's office, unaware that my most humiliating moment would become the first step toward the most satisfying revenge corporate America never saw coming. The night after my public execution was endless. I alternated between rage and disbelief, drafting and deleting resignation emails that would never be sent since I'd already been fired. I paced my apartment until 3 a.m., wondering how I'd make my mortgage payment next month. By sunrise, exhaustion had dulled the shock, leaving behind a cold clarity. I showered, dressed in my sharpest suit, and drove to Austin. Hallberg Capital occupied the top floor of a gleaming tower. But the interior wasn't what I expected. No chrome and glass showpieces, no obligatory modern art. Instead, the reception area featured floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, warm lighting, and an expensive silence that spoke of real power, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. "Ms. Byrne." The receptionist nodded. "Mr. Hallberg is expecting you." Grant Hallberg stood as I entered his office. He was shorter in person than he'd appeared seated at the restaurant, with salt and pepper hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. I guessed he was in his late 50s, though his energy suggested someone younger. "Amanda." He extended his hand. "I apologize for the theatrics last night. I wanted to speak with you immediately, but not where anyone from Strattonix might notice." "You plan to be there?" I asked, confusion momentarily displacing my professional demeanor. "Not exactly." He gestured for me to sit. "I was meeting with potential partners when I recognized you from across the room. Then I witnessed that disgraceful display." I sank into a leather chair. "Why would you recognize me?" "Chicago Tech Conference, 2021. You presented a prototype logistics system, RouteFlex. I believe you called it. I was in the audience. You spoke for only 15 minutes, but it was the most innovative approach to cold chain logistics I'd seen in years." He leaned forward. "What happened to it?" The question reopened a wound I'd thought had scarred over. Strattonix deemed it too proprietary. They wanted systems they could sell to everyone with minimal customization. RouteFlex was designed to adapt uniquely to each client's needs. It required more upfront development, but would have delivered exponentially better results. They shelved it. And last night, I squared my shoulders. The new CEO, Derek Callahan, has been pushing out anyone who questions his vision. I suggested reviving elements of RootFlex when our newest system showed stability issues. He called it dwelling in the past. Grant nodded thoughtfully. His loss, my gain. Potentially. He stood and walked to the window. I want you to rebuild RootFlex. Not for Stratton X, for me. I blinked. Excuse me. Full resources, unlimited budget, complete creative control. He turned back to me, but with one condition, absolute secrecy. I don't understand. You'll work through a shell company called Altura Shelfworks. No public filings, no LinkedIn updates, no industry announcements. You'll report directly to me, and only to me. My mind raced. This sounds clandestine. It is. The logistics industry is due for disruption, and I prefer moving pieces into place before competitors realize the game has changed. He returned to his desk. You'll need a team, small, trustworthy, exceptional. Can you assemble one? CC. Names immediately flashed through my mind, former colleagues who had suffered fates similar to mine. Yes, I said. I know exactly who to call. Grant nodded. Your compensation package. He slid a folder across his desk. I opened it and nearly gasped at the figure. This is 4 times my Stratton X salary. I pay for value, not titles. Stratton X undervalued you. I don't intend to make the same mistake. He extended his hand again. Do we have an agreement? I thought of Derek's smug face as he fired me over appetizers, of my colleagues' averted gazes, of my innovation gathering dust while inferior systems failed clients. I shook Grant's hand. We do. Excellent. There's a suite of offices prepared for you in our auxiliary building. My assistant will provide the details. He walked me to the door, then paused. One more thing, Amanda. Stratton X doesn't just deserve to lose. They deserve to understand exactly why they lost. The ghost of a smile crossed my face. I couldn't agree more. 3 days later, I sat in a sparsely furnished office that would become our war room. The space occupied the 3rd floor of an unremarkable building in North Austin, with frosted glass doors bearing only the words Altura Shelfworks. Inside, a half-dozen empty workstations awaited their occupants. The first knock came at exactly 9 a.m. Kayla Singh entered cautiously, her expression transitioning from uncertainty to recognition. Amanda. When I got this mysterious job offer, I never thought. I rose to embrace her. At 32. Kayla remained unchanged since I'd last seen her, brilliant, intensely focused, with a mind that processed code the way musicians hear symphonies. It's been too long, I said, releasing her. Almost a year. 13 months since Stratton X showed me the door. Her smile faded. They said my documentation was incomprehensible and my code too complex for the team to maintain. Translation: you were too smart for them, and it made mediocre people uncomfortable. She shrugged. Their loss? I've been consulting, but it's mostly boring stuff fixing other people's mistakes. How would you like to build something revolutionary instead? Her eyes lit up. I'm listening. I outlined Grant's proposition as Kayla explored the workstation nearest the window. By the time I finished, she was already logging in. I'm in, she said. When do we start? Right now, but we need the rest of the team first. As if on cue, the door opened again. Devin Rourke entered, his tall frame filling the doorway. His perpetually worried expression had deepened since I'd last seen him, new lines marking his forehead. As Stratton X's former QA lead, he'd been the canary in the coal mine, warning about system vulnerabilities until the day they blamed him for a catastrophic failure, one caused by Derek's insistence on cutting corners. Amanda, Kayla. He nodded to each of us. This is either the start of something amazing or the weirdest severance package ever. I laughed. Definitely the former. Before I could continue, the final member of our core team arrived. Marcy Caldwell had changed since her DevOps days at Stratton X. Her once long hair was now cropped short, and a new confidence marked her movements. She'd been fired for a system outage caused by a third-party provider, a convenient scapegoat when executives needed someone to blame. "Well, look at this reunion of the damned," she said, but her smile was genuine. When I got the call about a unique opportunity requiring absolute discretion, I had my doubts. But seeing you all here, she set down her laptop bag. "I'm guessing this isn't a coincidence." "It's not," I confirmed, gesturing for everyone to gather around the conference table. "We're here because someone recognized what Stratton X couldn't that together. We created something revolutionary before it was smothered in its cradle." "Rootflex," Devin said quietly. "You're talking about Routeflex." I nodded. "We're rebuilding it, better, stronger, with unlimited resources and zero corporate interference." Kayla frowned. "Who's bankrolling this?" "Grant Halberg." The name registered with all of them. "The venture capitalist," Mercy asked. "Why would he care about logistics software?" "Because he sees what we do, that the current systems are fundamentally broken, and whoever fixes them first stands to reshape an entire industry." I laid out the parameters: complete secrecy, generous compensation, and total creative freedom. "What's the catch?" Devin asked, ever the tester looking for hidden flaws. "No catch, just one unofficial objective." I met each of their eyes in turn. "We're going to build something so superior that when Strattonix loses every major client to our system, they'll know exactly who did it to them and why." A moment of silence followed. Then Kayla smiled slowly. "I've never been especially motivated by revenge," she said. "But I must admit, it does provide a certain additional incentive." Devin nodded. "I'm in. My wife's been telling me I need a hobby anyway." "Same," Marcy added. "Though I should warn you all, I've developed a pretty serious coffee habit since leaving Stratton X. Our budget better include a good espresso machine." I smiled. "I think we can manage that." By afternoon, we had outlined our approach. By evening, initial code repositories were created. By the end of the week, the bones of a new Rootflex began to take shape, not a resurrection, but an evolution, incorporating everything we'd learned in the years since its conception. Our shared history eliminated the need for lengthy explanations. We fell into a rhythm immediately, anticipating each other's needs, building on each other's ideas, creating something greater than any of us could have accomplished alone. And beneath it all ran a quiet current, not just the desire to succeed, but to prove definitively that those who had discarded us had made the greatest mistake of their careers. Rebuilding Rootflex wasn't simply a matter of dusting off old code. The original had been a promising prototype. What we needed now was a production-ready system that could outperform everything on the market. We started with the core architecture, a flexible, self-healing network of microservices that could adapt to any logistics challenge. Kayla led the development of our proprietary algorithms, while Devin designed testing protocols that would push the system to its limits and beyond. Marcy constructed a deployment pipeline that would make updates seamless and reversible. I coordinated it all, drawing on my systems architecture background to ensure the pieces didn't just fit together, but amplified each other's strengths. Weeks passed in a blur of code reviews, whiteboard sessions, and late-night breakthroughs. Grant visited periodically, asking insightful questions without imposing arbitrary deadlines. It was the purest form of creation I'd experienced in my professional life, the work I'd always wanted to do, with people I respected, free from corporate politics. 3 months in, we had our first major test. "The simulation is ready," Devin announced one morning. "I've recreated the exact conditions of Transamerica's supply chain, their routing patterns, inventory levels, everything." We gathered around his monitor, watching as the simulation played out. Transamerica was one of Stratton X's largest clients, a nationwide retailer with a notoriously complex cold chain for their grocery division. Standard systems, including Stratton X's, achieve approximately 82% routing efficiency under ideal conditions. Devin explained, pointing to the benchmark data. In real-world scenarios with disruptions, that drops to around 73%. He initiated our simulation. The screen displayed a map of North America, overlaid with thousands of moving dots representing vehicles, warehouses, and delivery points. Now introducing disruption factors. Weather delays appeared in the Midwest. A major highway closure emerged in Pennsylvania. A warehouse power outage struck in Arizona. In a traditional system, these disruptions would cause cascading failures, with each problem amplifying the next. But RouteFlex responded differently. It didn't just reroute it anticipated, readjusting the entire network to maintain optimal flow. Where other systems would send empty trucks to compensate for delays, RouteFlex consolidated shipments. Where others would default to emergency protocols, RouteFlex found elegant workarounds. When the simulation ended, we stared at the efficiency rating in disbelief. 91%, Marcy whispered. Even with multiple simultaneous disruptions. And that's conservative, Devin added. With real-time data feeds and machine learning improvements, we could push that to 94, maybe 95%. Do you know what that means financially? I asked, calculations running through my head. For a company Transamerica's size, that's tens of millions in savings annually. Reduced spoilage, lower fuel costs, fewer overtime hours, smaller carbon footprint. Kayla grinned, not to mention happier customers getting fresher products. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling Grant. It's time to move to Phase 2. Phase 2 began with a carefully orchestrated demonstration for a select client, Mid-Arc Logistics, a mid-sized regional carrier that handled sensitive medical shipments. They were a Stratton X client experiencing increasing system failures, but not so large that their departure would immediately signal an industry shift. Grant arranged the introduction through intermediaries, presenting our system as an early access opportunity from Altura Shelfworks. No mention was made of our backgrounds or Stratton X connections. Mid-Arc's CTO, Lisa Werner, arrived with healthy skepticism. I've seen a dozen logistics systems in the past year, she told us. Each one promises revolution and delivers, at best, incremental improvement. We're not asking you to take our word for it, I replied. We're offering you a controlled test. Run your most challenging route parallel on both systems for 30 days. Compare the results yourself. She agreed, selecting their St. Louis to Miami corridor, a route plagued by weather variables, traffic unpredictability, and strict delivery windows for temperature-sensitive medications. The test began the following Monday. By Wednesday, Lisa was calling with questions. By Friday, she requested access to additional features. By the end of the second week, she asked to expand the test to 3 more routes. At the 30-day mark, the data was unambiguous. RouteFlex had maintained 93% efficiency against Stratton X's 76%. Fuel savings alone approached 22%. Temperature excursions, critical deviations that could render medications ineffective, dropped to near zero. I've never seen anything like this, Lisa admitted during our review meeting. It's not just better, it's a fundamentally different approach. So what happens next? I asked, though I already knew the answer. We're terminating our Stratton X contract. Their early cancellation penalties are substantial, but we'll recoup the cost in under 4 months with your system. She extended her hand. When can we begin full implementation? 1 week later, Mid-Arc formally ended their 5-year relationship with Stratton X. The industry took little notice, just another client changing vendors. But inside Stratton X, alarms were sounding. A long-standing client had not only left, but had cited revolutionary alternatives as their reason. Derek Callahan, who had so confidently dismissed me over appetizers, was now demanding answers. We knew this because Marcy had maintained friendly relations with the Stratton X network administrator, who occasionally shared office gossip. According to her source, the internal Slack channels were burning with speculation and finger-pointing. Apparently, Derek called an all-hands meeting, Marcy reported, reading from her phone. He's blaming the implementation team for failing to properly maintain client relationships. Classic, Devin muttered. It's never the system's fault, always the people's. I smiled. Let him believe that. For now. Our next target was larger Pharma Direct. a national pharmaceutical distributor with stringent compliance requirements. Their logistics needs made Midarks look simple by comparison, involving controlled substances, cross-border regulations, and an aging fleet of temperature-controlled vehicles. They were also Strattonex's showcase client, prominently featured in case studies and marketing materials. Grant personally handled the introduction this time, leveraging his relationship with PharmaDirect's board. The testing protocol was more extensive, involving parallel operations across multiple regions for 60 days. The results were even more dramatic than with Midark. Beyond efficiency improvements, RootFlex's predictive capabilities prevented 3 potential catastrophic failures events that would have resulted in lost shipments worth millions. When PharmaDirect signed with us, we knew the ripples would reach shore. This was too big to ignore. The industry press took notice. Logistics. Weekly ran a small article titled, PharmaDirect Makes Surprising Vendor Switch. Supply Chain Digest mentioned, an emerging player disrupting established patterns. Inside Stratton-X, according to our source, chaos erupted. Emergency meetings were called. Development teams were reassigned to patch vulnerabilities in their flagship system. Derek Callahan began appearing unexpectedly in technical reviews, demanding explanations for system limitations. He's basically terrorizing the dev teams. Marcy's contact reported. Yesterday he asked why their system couldn't self-heal like the competition. No one even knew what he was talking about. We celebrated that night our first real acknowledgement that the plan was working. Grant joined us, bringing champagne and a quiet satisfaction. To phase 3, he toasted. The dominoes are beginning to fall. Phase 3 arrived faster than anticipated, in the form of a certified letter delivered to my apartment. Stratton-X was threatening legal action against me personally, alleging intellectual property theft, violation of non-compete agreements, and tortious interference with business relationships. They claimed to have substantial evidence that I had stolen proprietary code and methodologies, using them to develop a competing product specifically targeted at their clients. I brought the letter to our next team meeting. They're fishing, Devin said after reading it. They have suspicions but no proof. If they had actual evidence, they'd have filed a lawsuit already. It's intimidation, Marcy agreed. They're hoping you'll panic and reveal something. Kayla examined the letter more carefully. There's something else happening here. Look at the specific claims. They're saying you stole their IP to create RootFlex, but RouteFlex predates their current systems. It's like they're trying to retroactively claim ownership of your original work. I hadn't considered that angle, but Kayla was right. The timeline in their letter carefully omitted the fact that I had developed RootFlex's initial architecture years before Derek joined the company. We need to respond, I said. Not just defensively, but with a counter-narrative that sets the record straight. I called Grant, who immediately connected us with Halberg Capital's legal team. Their approach wasn't just to defend, it was to counterattack. Within days, Stratton-X received a response that must have landed like a bomb in their legal department. Our letter included documented evidence of my original work on RootFlex, including dated design notes, early commit logs, and emails from Stratton-X executives acknowledging that the concept originated with me. Most damaging of all, we included screenshots of internal communications showing that Derek had ordered RootFlex archived specifically to prevent it from competing with his preferred solution, despite technical evaluations showing its superior capabilities. Where did you get these? I asked Grant when he showed me the final letter before it was sent. Let's just say not everyone who left Stratton-X deleted their access to cloud storage, he replied with a thin smile. And some people who still work there find Derek's leadership style motivating in unexpected ways. The letter concluded with our own set of demands, a formal retraction of their accusations, acknowledgement of my intellectual contribution, and damages for defamation. Stratton-X's response was silence, the corporate equivalent of retreat. But our counteroffensive had just begun. With Stratton-X legally neutralized, we accelerated our client acquisition strategy. Grant connected us with logistics directors across multiple industries, each receiving the same proposition, a no-risk parallel implementation to demonstrate RootFlex's superiority. The results spoke for themselves. Client after client witnessed efficiency improvements that transformed their bottom lines. Many came to us already frustrated with Stratton X's rigid systems and poor support, making the transition even smoother. Each defection weakened Stratton X's market position. Their stock price, already stagnant, began to slip. Industry analysts noted the trend, questioning the company's ability to retain key accounts. Inside Stratton X, the atmosphere deteriorated further. Our source reported increased security measures, paranoid executives, and a culture of blame. Derek reportedly established a competitive response team, tasked with identifying and countering the mysterious competitor stealing their business. Then came the watershed moment. Transamerica, Stratton X's largest client, announced they were reviewing all vendor relationships as part of a strategic efficiency initiative. The industry recognized this corporate euphemism for what it was, a prelude to major changes. Stratton X responded by slashing prices and promising accelerated feature development. They dispatched their entire executive team to Transamerica's headquarters, offering unprecedented concessions to maintain the relationship. Meanwhile, Grant arranged a quiet demonstration of RootFlex for Transamerica's operations team, not their executives, but the people who actually manage their complex logistics network daily. When Transamerica announced their decision 3 weeks later, Stratton X's stock dropped 18% in a single day. The logistics giant hadn't just switched vendors, they had publicly cited transformative technology unavailable elsewhere in the market as their reasoning. That afternoon, I received an unexpected email from a journalist named Isabel Hahn at Tech Innovator magazine, requesting an interview about the emerging disruption in logistics technology. How did she connect me to Alturi? I asked Grant during our emergency call. She didn't, he replied. She connected you to RootFlex. How is that possible? We've been completely under the radar. Someone's talking, either inside one of our client companies or inside Stratton X, I finished. Someone there has figured it out. Grant was silent for a moment. This was inevitable, Amanda. The question is how we respond. I considered our options. We could continue operating in secrecy, neither confirming nor denying. We could refuse the interview request, buying time but potentially allowing others to control the narrative. Or we could seize the moment, step into the light on our terms. Tell me about this journalist, I said. Isabel Hahn, Harvard MBA, 5 years at Wall Street Journal before moving to tech reporting, known for in-depth analysis rather than sensationalism. She broke the story on Future Field's accounting irregularities last year. So she's thorough, credible. Yes. I made my decision, set up the interview, but I have conditions. Isabel Hahn met me at a neutral location, a private room in an upscale Austin hotel. No photographers, no recording devices beyond her encrypted phone. She arrived precisely on time, professionally dressed, with a focused intensity that suggested she already knew this was no ordinary story. Thank you for agreeing to meet, she began after introductions. I've been tracking an unusual pattern in the logistics industry for months, established clients abandoning market-leading providers for an unknown alternative. All roads led to Altura Shelfworks, which led to you. What exactly are you hoping to write about, Ms. Han? The truth, she replied simply. A mysterious company appears from nowhere, creates technology that outperforms industry standards by margins considered impossible, and systematically acquires the clients of one specific competitor. That's not just business, that's a story. I studied her carefully. And if that story involves corporate malfeasance, executive incompetence, and personal vendetta, even better, she smiled slightly. But I'll need evidence, not just allegations. I opened my laptop. I think we can accommodate that. For the next 2 hours, I walked her through RootFlex's development, its original conception, Stratton X's abandonment of the project, and our subsequent rebuilding of the technology. I showed her performance comparisons, client testimonials, and documentation of Stratonex's increasingly desperate attempts to stem the client exodus. This is compelling, Isabel acknowledged, but the personal angle is what makes it newsworthy. Why did you leave Stratton X? I had anticipated this question and had decided, after much consideration, to tell the complete truth. I didn't leave. I was fired, publicly, during a client dinner, by a CEO who later tried to claim ownership of my innovations after dismissing them as worthless. Her eyebrows rose. That's unusual executive behavior. It was calculated humiliation, and it backfired spectacularly. I closed my laptop. Everything I've shown you is factual and documented. I'm not asking you to write a hit piece just to report what happened. And the timing of this interview, why now? Because transparency serves us better than shadows at this point. Our technology speaks for itself. We have nothing to hide. She nodded slowly. I'd like to speak with some of your clients and your team. Arranged. And one more thing. I reached into my bag and removed a thumb drive. This contains video of RootFlex in action, side by side with comparable systems. You might find it illustrative. As she left, Isabel paused at the door. Final question. Was this about revenge or innovation? I considered my answer carefully. Both, initially. Now it's about vindication, not just for me, but for everyone who's had their contributions dismissed by people who lack the vision to recognize value. She smiled. That's your headline right there. Well. The article dropped like a bomb on a Tuesday morning. Inside Stratton X's collapse. How corporate arrogance fueled the rise of a competitor ran as the cover story of Tech Innovator's digital and print editions simultaneously. Isabel's reporting was meticulous, balanced, and devastating. She had interviewed former Stratton X employees, current clients, and industry analysts. She had verified every technical claim about RootFlex's performance. Most damaging of all, she had somehow obtained internal Stratton X emails discussing the emergency situation created by client defections. The article included a sidebar about executive accountability, featuring Derek Callahan's history of taking credit for others' innovations and discarding employees who challenged him. His public firing of me was described in clinical detail, including quotes from witnesses who found it unprofessional and gratuitously cruel. But the centerpiece was an interview with a Transamerica executive who stated bluntly, "We didn't leave Stratton X because of price or relationships. We left because their technology was fundamentally inferior. Our business depends on logistical excellence, not corporate loyalty." Accompanying the article was a video demonstration of RootFlex handling a simulated multi-state weather emergency, smoothly rerouting hundreds of shipments while maintaining temperature control and delivery schedules. The Stratton X system, by contrast, triggered cascading alerts and multiple failure points. I didn't sabotage anything. I was quoted saying in the article's conclusion, "I simply built what they refused to build. I didn't steal their clients, I offered a superior alternative, and the market made its choice." By market close that day, Stratton X's stock had fallen another 22%. Financial analysts issued downgrades. Social media buzzed with commentary, much of it critical of Derek's leadership and vindictive behavior. The next morning, Stratton X issued a terse statement announcing Derek Callahan's departure to pursue other opportunities. No replacement was named, suggesting a hasty exit rather than a planned succession. That afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. "Amanda Byrne," I answered cautiously. "Amanda, it's Julia Westbrook, Stratton X's chief financial officer and one of the executives who had sat silently during my public firing. I think we should talk." "I'm listening." "The board has asked me to reach out. They're reevaluating certain strategic decisions made under previous leadership." "How fascinating for them." She sighed. "We've made mistakes, Amanda, serious ones. The board recognizes that now. And they'd like to discuss potential collaboration options, perhaps even acquisition." I laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a genuine laugh of disbelief. You want to buy the company you claimed was stealing your intellectual property, the one built by people you discarded. Things have changed. We've changed. No, Julia, you haven't changed. You've simply lost. And now you're trying to save face. I paused. But I appreciate the call. It confirms we're on the right track. I ended the call and immediately phoned Grant. Stratton X just reached out about acquisition talks. I told him. Interesting. What did you tell them? That they're too late? He chuckled. Perfect. Because I've just received 3 other inquiries about potential investment or partnership with Altura. Word is definitely out. What's our next move? That, Grant said, is entirely up to you. The official launch of RootFlex as a standalone product occurred 6 months after Isabel's article. We chose the Logistics Innovation Summit in Chicago for our debut, the same conference where I had first presented the concept years earlier. By then, we had expanded beyond our core team, hiring selectively from companies known for engineering excellence. Our client list had grown to include transportation giants, retail chains, and healthcare networks across North America. Stratton X continued to exist, but as a diminished version of itself. Their board had replaced Derek with an industry veteran tasked with stabilization and renewal. Corporate speak for stopping the bleeding. I stood backstage at the conference, reviewing my presentation notes one final time. In the audience were logistics executives, technology journalists, and industry analysts, all eager to finally see the system that had upended established hierarchies. 5 minutes, Ms. Byrne, a staff member informed me. I nodded, adjusting my jacket. For this moment, I had chosen a suit in the same deep burgundy as the wine being poured the night Derek fired me. A small, personal touch that no one else would recognize, but which gave me quiet satisfaction. Grant appeared at my side. Nervous. Not at all, I replied, surprised to find it was true. This feels like closure. You've earned it. He hesitated. There's something I should tell you before you go out there. What is it? Derek Callahan just joined Vector Logic as their new chief strategy officer. Vector Logic was Stratton X's main competitor before we entered the market, a company known for aggressive tactics and mediocre technology. I smiled. They deserve each other. The stage manager signaled it was time. I walked onto the platform as the introduction concluded. Chief Technology Officer of Altura Shelfworks, the creator of RootFlex, Amanda Byrne. Applause greeted me as I took my position. Camera flashes punctuated the dimmed hall. On the massive screen behind me appeared the RootFlex logo, a stylized network of interconnected nodes forming an infinite loop. Thank you, I began. Many of you have heard rumors about RootFlex. Today, I'm here to separate fact from fiction and to demonstrate why we believe this technology represents not just an improvement, but a fundamental reimagining of logistics management. For the next 40 minutes, I walked the audience through RootFlex's capabilities, its development philosophy, and the real-world results our clients had experienced. I introduced Kayla, Devin, and Marcy, acknowledging their crucial contributions. When the formal presentation ended, I opened the floor for questions. A journalist in the third row raised his hand first. There's been speculation that RootFlex was specifically designed to target Stratton X's client base. Would you care to comment on that? I smiled. RootFlex wasn't designed to target any specific competitor. It was designed to solve problems that existing systems couldn't address. If those happen to be problems experienced by Stratton X clients, that's correlation, not causation. A ripple of knowing laughter spread through the audience. Another hand rose, a woman near the back. Your team consists primarily of former Stratton X employees who left under controversial circumstances. Was this project motivated by professional rivalry? I considered my answer carefully, aware that my response would likely be quoted extensively. This project was motivated by a belief that logistics professionals deserve better tools than they were being offered. Everyone on our team shares a commitment to excellence that wasn't always appreciated in previous environments. We're not defined by where we came from, but by what we've built. The final question came from a logistics director I recognized from industry events. In light of your success, do you feel vindicated? The word echoed Isabel's final question during our interview. This time, my answer came without hesitation. This was never about vindication. It was about validation, proving that our approach to logistics was not just theoretically sound, but practically superior. The market has rendered its verdict, and we're grateful for the opportunity to transform an industry that affects every aspect of modern life. As the session concluded and attendees swarmed the stage, I caught sight of Julia Westbrook slipping out a side door. Our eyes met briefly across the crowded room. She nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement, perhaps even respect, before disappearing into the corridor. Later that evening, our team gathered for a celebratory dinner. No clients, no press, just the core group who had built something extraordinary from the ashes of professional humiliation. Grant raised his glass. To Amanda, who turned catastrophe into triumph. To all of us, I corrected, including everyone in my gaze. We didn't just build a better system. We proved that the most valuable resource in any company isn't its patents or its processes, it's its people. Kayla smiled. And to Derek Callahan, without whom none of this would have happened. We laughed, tension finally dissolving completely. Do you ever wonder if he realizes, Devin asked, that his biggest failure wasn't technical or strategic, but human? I doubt it, Marcy replied. People like that never see themselves as the problem. I considered this. Maybe not, but everyone else can see it now. As conversation flowed around me, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. From that moment of public humiliation to this celebration of undeniable success, the path hadn't been about revenge, though that had provided initial motivation. It had been about reclaiming narratives, about proving that innovation doesn't always come from the top down, that sometimes the people dismissed as obstacles are actually the visionaries, and that sometimes the most powerful response to injustice isn't anger, but excellence. When dessert arrived, I declined a second glass of wine. Early meeting tomorrow, I explained. We're presenting to the European expansion team. Always looking forward, Grant observed with approval. That's the thing about vindication, I replied, echoing the question I'd been asked earlier. It's satisfying, but fleeting. Building something that lasts, that's the real victory. As I drove home that night, I passed the gleaming tower housing Stratton X's headquarters. Once, that building had represented my professional identity. Now it was just another office complex. Its significance diminished by everything that had happened since that fateful dinner. I didn't slow down. I didn't need to. I was already exactly where I needed to be, moving forward, at the helm of something revolutionary, surrounded by people who recognized value when they saw it. The best revenge, it turned out, wasn't destruction. It was creation.